It's time for a little comedy, a little content, and a lot of conversation. It's the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube. Now here's your host, Geno Jones.
Hello, what's happening, everybody? Yes, it is showtime. My name, well, there you go, right there. It is time for the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show right here on my YouTube channel. I do this show live Monday through Fridays, roughly right around 6:30. Okay, it's 6:41, like I said, around 6:30, around 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30, around 5:30 in Chicago, Central Time, or Houston, wherever you may be. And if you're out on the West Coast, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, 3:30 Pacific Time. All right, listen, today I'm going to talk about a subject that I wish that I didn't have to, but it's necessary. 1 in 3, the last research that I did, 1 in 3 women in America, roughly 30%, and 1 in 4 men, if you could believe that, it's roughly 25% of men in America are victims of domestic violence. You may have heard the story in the news. There's a NFL player who currently doesn't have a team named Chad Wheeler. This guy's 6'7", 310 pounds. His last team was the Seattle Seahawks. He was charged a couple days ago with felony domestic violence in the first degree, domestic violence, unlawful imprisonment, and another charge for viciously beating his girlfriend last weekend. Now, according to the police report, this young man, and I'm using the term young man loosely, just trying to restrain myself, he asked his girlfriend that he asked her to stand up and bow to him. She didn't want to stand up and bow to him. So the police report went on to say that he beat her unconscious. As a matter of fact, he beat her so bad that she blacked out twice. She went unconscious twice. At one point, she woke up, and then Wheeler said to her, according to this police report, "Wow, you're alive." That tells you, while he was sipping on a smoothie. So while she was in a bedroom, he thought she was dead. He decided that he needed a smoothie. And all of a sudden, he hears her, and he turns around and says, "Wow, you're still alive." She was able to escape to the bathroom, lock herself in the bathroom. She was able to call, I guess, she tried to call family members, and she eventually did get the police. The police did eventually came to the house. Now, just for the record, Chad Wheeler is white. His girlfriend is black, for the record. Now, you might be asking, well, why is that relevant? Well, because when the police got to the house, apparently it took 3 police officers to basically subdue Chad Wheeler. They tased him initially. The taser didn't work. But they were able to take him without using their gun. Now, so when you ask, well, what does race have to do with this? I got to ask the question, if Chad Wheeler was black and his girlfriend was white, and if he beat his white girlfriend to within an inch of her life, and 3 police officers came and they tased him, and the taser didn't work, do you think he would have got out of that situation alive? That's another story, because my focus is not on that, but that's another element to this story. But this show is about domestic violence. And I've said this for years, and I'm going to say it again. Violence against women, or violence is wrong in any case. But violence against women is not a woman's problem. It's a man's problem. And it's up to us men, we can end it. We create it. There are a lot of conditions that go into it. But the bottom line is there's no acceptable situation. If you're with a woman and she's that violent toward you, I'm going to give you some advice that my mother gave me, who's watching this show right now. She said, Jeannie, if it gets that bad, just leave. Now that might seem, depending on the situation, the circumstances, as hard as it might seem to be, as hard as it might be to do, that's really the easiest and the safest thing to do. Just leave. As a man, any man worth his salt, there's really only two basic things that any man, if he loves you, wants to do. And that's to protect and to provide some type of security. I'm not talking about money necessarily, just wants to provide a sense of security. And hey, listen, you're safe with me. And if he can't provide that, then he's not a man as far as I'm concerned. He's not worth the skin he's in as a man. So I don't want to waste any more time. I got a couple guests who are dear friends of mine, and I want to bring them to the show. They are with an organization called Real Mad. Real Mad. It's Real Men Against Domestic Violence. We got Butch Kennedy and his lovely wife, Lisa, relatively newlyweds, coming to the show. As a matter of fact, they're on the screen right now. Lisa and Butch, I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining the show. I know I called you guys at the last minute, but the story has really, really been weighing heavy on me. And Butch, you and Lisa, you guys know. And for those who may be watching the show maybe for the first time or maybe for, I don't know how many times I've been doing this show since the end of September, early October. Domestic violence, it is personal for me. I'm very passionate about it because it is personal for me. When I was 4.5 years old, roughly, my mother was pregnant with my baby sister. And I witnessed a man who was beating her. We lived in a 2-flat in Chicago. 2 flats, in some cities they call them brownstones. And we lived on the 2nd floor. And it was what we called a back porch. It was like an add-on to the house. It was an extension, but it was enclosed. And this man was beating my mother in front of me. I'm 4.5. My mother is pregnant with my baby sister. And I tried to tackle this guy. I ran at him and I leaped into him and I tried to knock him down at 4.5 years old. So yes, domestic violence, violence against women are personal. So once again, Butch and Lisa, I want to thank you guys for joining the show. Butch, and I know you've written a book. And we've talked a lot, done a lot of conversations, events about I guess there's a term used, toxic masculinity. I guess that's one. It's just, society has really screwed us men up in so many ways. And I know people are watching. Yes, men are victims of domestic violence, but the main perpetrators of domestic violence are men. Now, for the record, let me just add this about the story about Chad Wheeler. Apparently, according to some reports, that Chad Wheeler is bipolar. Mental illness is real. Mental illness is a disease. No one asks for mental illness. I am very empathetic to that. I know people who suffer from being bipolar. However, that does not excuse this behavior. All right. Being bipolar, I know people who are bipolar and who have never beaten a woman. So I will not accept that you're going to blame your violence toward a woman on being bipolar. That might contribute to it, but there's some deeper issues that you need to deal with. And Bruce, Butch, I know we talked about that. So where do you want to start this conversation off in terms of how our society and just our culture as humans and as men have really We've got this kind of really distorted, twisted, you could say toxic definition of what being a man is all about.
Wow. Yeah, Gino, I mean, you hit the nail on the head from the beginning when you said, that when you talked about domestic violence and you talked about men, we are absolutely the solution to ending violence against women. That has been my platform from day one. I was raised to believe that a man should never hit a woman. I mean, my motto is real men don't hit women, and I wear the bracelet all the time on my wrist. Real men don't hit women. This gentleman that we're talking about, I don't even consider him a gentleman. He was 318 pounds. Not only did he beat her, but he strangled her. This is nothing new for the NFL. The NFL has had over 96 cases of domestic violence in the lifetime over the past 12 years since I've been looking into the NFL. I actually reached out to the NFL when I first started working with domestic violence, and I thought they did a lot of great things for breast cancer, and I just wanted them to bring that initiative to the NFL, so we'd have a different stage so people would see exactly what we're talking about. The biggest issue that I have with domestic violence, Gino, is that 80% of the men out there believe, just like you and I believe, that a real man should never hit a woman. We're here to protect, right? Protect and provide for our women, right? 80% of the men believe just that. The problem is that 20% of the men are the percentage of the men that abuse women. And people look at me and say 20%, that doesn't seem like a lot when you have 80%, right? But realize, man, that the black population is only 13% of America. We talking about 20% of men in general. That's a whole lot of men that are doing something. And what we expect men to do, and what I expect men to do, is hold other men accountable for what it is that we do, right? So it's hard for men to hold each other accountable for doing something that's been going on since the beginning of time. Domestic violence isn't new. It's been happening since the beginning of the time, man. When cavemen were here, the cavemen would take a club and beat the woman beside the head and drag her to the cave, and now she's his wife, right? And so domestic violence is the most pervasive crime in our community. But when you started giving out statistics, those are only reported cases.
Yes,
Those are
absolutely.
only people that report. I've been doing this for over 12 years, but Lisa here has been doing it for 20 plus years, right? And I learned something from her every day, man. Uh, in order to end domestic violence, it starts with men. It starts with men, and that's why I'm so glad that you are on this initiative with me, man, because of the more men that we get, the tighter knit group that we get of men who are armed and prepared to work with other men to end violence against women, the stronger we become as men. And for so long, we've gotten a bad rap. Men have gotten a bad rap about everything as far as the family dynamics, but it starts early with men. You know what I mean? We're taught certain things at a young life. We're taught to cut off emotions. We're not supposed to cry, and we're not supposed to we're allowed to have one emotion, and that's anger, man. I mean, it's okay for a boy to be upset, but it's never okay for a boy to cry. So I mean, so many different issues that we have as young men lead us to the point to where violence is everything. And we condone that violence, man, from the football field to everything that it is that we do. We carry this violence from the playground all the way to the house, to the homes, and you think you're immune to the churches, but you're not. Domestic violence is everywhere, man, and it's the toughest fight that I've ever fought in my life. When I got into it, I was naive. I thought the men would come together, we would all band together, we're the cavalry, we're going to come to save the day. But the truth in the reality is that it's a very difficult thing to deal with. I mean, it's hard for me to deal with, knowing that as men we're here to protect our women. But when we see what happens here, I mean, everybody saw what happened with Ray Rice, right? When he
Right.
knocked his now wife out, but
Yep.
nobody saw what happened with this gentleman, right? Nobody saw it. But he's a 318-pound man, 6 foot
Six,
seven,
seven. Yeah.
318-pound man. I realize that he does have mental illness, and he's saying all the right things now, that he's totally sorry. He's walking away from the NFL. He's doing all this stuff. But there's a lady there that almost died. He strangled her. He beat her, and that's just too much for me to bear.
And
Especially when I have a beautiful wife like that there, right there. I could never imagine doing that to her. You know what I mean?
listen, wow. Like I said, this is a very personal subject, but I'm so honored to have this platform. And Lisa, I want to get your perspective real soon, but I want to piggyback, Butch, on something that you said, because when I was a little boy, my mother said, she said, Jeannie, I never want anyone else's daughter. I don't want any other woman to go through what I went through because of you.
Right.
So I'm going to make sure that you do not grow up to be that kind of guy. So I tell that story to segue to this question. Butch, let's talk about what does it look like in terms of us men? What is that accountability? What does that accountability look like in terms of men holding other men, not just accountable, but trying to talk them off the ledge and just have these hard conversations where, because I believe you and I have had this conversation. One of the main things that we've got to do as a culture, and specifically as black men, as men in general, but there's no person in America that is more disrespected, devalued, and unprotected as a black woman. So I'm just gonna put it out there, and I'm just keep it 1,000. So as far as I'm concerned, we as black men, we have a special responsibility to make sure that we do everything we can to hold other black men accountable and say, listen, in our culture, what is not acceptable is domestic violence under any situation. If you're in a relationship that is toxic, then you got to get out. We'll help you get out. Like my mother told me, just leave. If you are having some type of mental issues, if there's mental health issues, we can get you help. But you can't, whatever mental illness or mental disease you may have will not keep you from being held accountable. And I believe if we as a culture change it and just set certain standards to where this is not going to be accepted, it can change. But I want you to talk about what is, because I know you've done you work with a lot of men. What does that accountability look like?
I agree with you, and that's the hardest thing for men to do is hold each other accountable, right? I mean, it starts from the playground, man. It starts with everything that we as men do. You know what I mean? We were taught that certain things as men, and it's kind of hard to check your friend, so to put. But you know, the more you check your friend, if you're I mean, Lisa tells a story all the time about O.J. Simpson, and I know she's going to tell you the story about O.J. Simpson. But if you are a man and you're my friend, right, and we're going to have a conversation, and out your conversation you deviate from something in that conversation to make it seem like you're going to be doing something violent towards a woman, then it's my job as a man to say, you know, no, that's not what we do. That's not how we get down. So to be honest with you, and a lot of men, you don't have to be confrontational in that action.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men take it personal when you're confrontational in that action. So, I mean, it's just like you and I having a conversation, man. You know, all of a sudden you say, man, that girl just made me so mad last night, man. I just wanted to grab her and just beat her. And then you say, no, that's not how we get down, man. That's not how we do this.
Right.
And, you know, men will begin to, the more men that tell them that, the more they'll realize, you know, that that's not just the way that we should behave as men. And the thing about it is we've never been taught that as men. We've never been, we keep saying I'm my brother's keeper, right? But we have never truly been my brother's keeper, right? We have been my brother's friend, right? We have been side by side with my brother, but we can see our brother going to the right and we can let him go to the right all he wants to. We're not going to try to deviate him from going to the left when even though we know what's going down on the right, that he shouldn't be there.
Now, Lisa,
so, I mean,
it's
the hardest thing, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's the hardest thing in the world to do, to get a man to tell a man that he's wrong, and to make him admit that he's wrong, and to change his perception and his attitude about everything. But that's what we do. And that's what we do in our organization. Yeah, our thing, just like you said, is to make men walk away.
And that's what love is about, man. If I love you as a brother, I'm like, hey man, listen, Butch, dude, I love you, brother. You're my people. But we can't do this. So let's sit down. What is this really about? What's at the root of this anger? Because she is not the source of whatever pain and anger, because that anger and rage is masking some type of pain. Mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. Let's get to the bottom of that. But you cannot, you can't transfer that anger and rage onto this woman. That is, as you say, this is not how we get down in this culture. Lisa,
but you got to realize, Geno, this is a built-up thing. Yeah. This anger and rage is built up over years because we don't have a way to release that emotion, right?
Exactly.
So it builds up over time, and then it just like it just blows up all in one instance. But this is nothing that just happens. Uh, it's not automatic. It's not automatically.
Yeah, it just didn't pop up like a
It just didn't pop up like a
like
It's
acne.
stuff that
Yeah,
builds up.
yeah. It's not a pimple like acne. It's just oh
Yeah.
wow, I got to no.
Yeah.
It didn't work that way. Lisa, I want to thank you so much for joining this conversation. Your perspective is so valued, not just because you're an expert, but it's so important to get a woman's perspective because let me share a quick story. It's a painful story, and I know my mother's watching, but my mother has shared these stories with me because she knows I'm an advocate. She encourages me to share these stories to hope that it somehow can resonate with women and with men. So this man who beat my mother in front of me, who I tried to fight and attack, shortly after that, he moved away to a little small town in Michigan. We grew up in Chicago. So my mother tells me the story about how one day she started drinking, which eventually led to a drinking problem that she overcame without any type of intervention or anything, which is another story outside of the fact, glory to God. So she said, Jeannie, every day about 4:30, when I heard that key inside the lock, she said, just the anxiety, and I would just get like a knot in my stomach because I knew the moment that door opened that I was literally going to have to fight for my life every day with two little girls, my two sisters, in the house. And so I guess she said there was some alcohol in the house, and one day she just took a drink. She took a drink, and she drank it just to give her, I guess, a sense of false courage. Just she was looking for some way to cope because she knew that literally she was going to have to physically battle and fight with this man every day for whatever reason, for no reason at all. The food was too hot. It was too cold. He didn't like what my sisters had on. He was mad because he went out and gambled all his money. He was mad because it was raining. He was mad because the sun was shining. Just any and no reason at all. So, Lisa, I want you to speak to, as a professional and as a woman, because I'm sure you can share a perspective that even we as men, Butch and I, can't necessarily really explain, because what my mother was able to do when she told me that story, it gave me a perspective of the fear, and to hear it and the way she was able to explain it, it gave me a different perspective. So you've done this work. So what are some of the first steps that you and your organization take, Lisa, when you try to intervene and diffuse the situation, or just put an end to it, or if nothing else, just rescue the woman that's in the situation? In a lot of cases, there are children involved also.
Mm-hmm. And first, I'd like to say that it is so common for individuals to self-medicate when they're in abusive relationships. If it's not alcohol, it's the next big thing is prescription drugs. They end up going to a doctor for an injury received when they were being abused, and they get attached to those pain pills. Because if I can numb my emotions, then I can get through the day-to-day abuse or the anxiety that I face every time, like you said, they turn that key in the door and they're coming in. So that's a common sign that family members can also look for when they think something's not right. And the reason why she was probably able to kick that habit on her own was once that abuser was good and gone, and she started to normalize over the years, she probably said to herself, okay, I don't need this anymore. The problem is gone. And so, but some of the things that we do, we often receive our clients in numerous ways. It's amazing how Facebook has been a way, because of Butch's Facebook presence. We get calls continuously. We get calls from the hospital. We have victim advocates with law enforcement that will call us and connect us with clients. There have actually been times when I've had calls because people would call a family member when the abuse is taking place and say, this is going on. And they'd say, hey, wait a minute. They'll call Butch, and then Butch gives them my number. And I've actually been on the phone before police got to the scene and been able to communicate with these victims. And that's why the craziness is with this incident with this young lady and the football player, some people might say, well, why did she try to call family members before law enforcement? Well, number one, you mentioned something that's key. She's African American. Oftentimes, our women do not get the same response from law enforcement.
Thank you.
Okay, as victims. So there could have been situations in the past where, hey, maybe law enforcement didn't respond quite the way that she would have wanted. Also, he's a football player. So you
Thank you.
add that to it. Are they going to believe me? Are they going to truly believe me when I call? Are they going to do anything? So that's probably why she wanted to let family members know first, because of our relationship with law enforcement. That's unfortunate. And then secondly, she realized that family members probably said, but no, sweetheart, you got to call the police now. And so as they were probably on their way too. So that's another key component. But oftentimes when we get that call, we're trying to make sure that they're in a safe environment. If they haven't called law enforcement, we're encouraging them to call law enforcement. And sometimes that's a great task, just to get them to pick up the phone and call law enforcement, because you're always wondering, are they going to believe me? But also, domestic violence, believe it or not, is kind of a psychological process. I'm not going to punch you in the face on the first date because you'll leave me. I have to win you over.
Okay.
And there's a psychological process to that where I climb into your head and I separate you from everything from family, from friends, and everything else. And I convince you that my love is true, that I'm committed to you. And oftentimes people fall hook, line, and sinker for it.
Wow.
So, yeah, when we get that call, we're dealing with a lot of things, and that's why counseling is so important. But our objective is to get you into a safe place. We assist with hotel stays. We can help get them filed for an order of protection, which also addresses custody within it, and that's going before a family court judge and asking for these services. A lot of individuals are afraid of going to a shelter. But the shelters aren't as bad as you think they are. But it's hard to say, I'm going to go from my house with my kids into somebody else's place and have to live under their rules. But, a lot of times we work with them to get them to that process. So there are many dynamics, but I'll tell you one thing. After I was involved in this arena for many years, but when I ran into this guy, Butch Kennedy, that said, we can't do this without men, as you opened your show up, I was like, hey, I got to take a different look at this. And this is so true. And I'm so glad to be a part of this and so glad that you wanted to address this, because we cannot tackle this without men at the table. Even, as statistics change and more men are being abused, and it's just because of the dynamic of what's changing in our homes. But we have to do this together. That's the only way.
Absolutely.
The only way.
Because I know I'm running out of time, so I don't want to lose you guys. Lisa, if there's one piece of advice, one thing that you would say to women who are in situations like this, because women of all ages are victims, but from what I read, younger women seem to be at the highest risk. Probably like this young woman, 18, 24, 18 to 30, young. What's the one thing that a woman who feels that she doesn't have anywhere to turn, what advice would you give her, and what would you tell her to do?
I would tell her, first of all, I'm gonna have to say that if something is ongoing, law enforcement. Number two, that if that seems like it hasn't worked for you in the past, then there's a 1-800 799 SAFE number.
Yes.
The word I'm saying the word SAFE, but 1-800-799 SAFE. It is national. They can connect you with numerous organizations. And of course, then here we are with Palmetto Hope Network and Real Mad. And we will help you navigate the process. Sometimes people don't desire law enforcement. There's so much more help than there was, Geno, when your mother went through this. So, you have to reach out. You've got the internet there. There are people there to help you. You are not alone. And families, regardless of how much this person may continue to go back, stay strong with them. The abuser wants you to leave them.
Yes.
But no, stand firm and be there and be that support system. But law enforcement, shelters, and the internet as resources, and their local organizations.
And as family, how do you do that, Lisa, when like in my mother's situation, the abuser gets her way, far away, because he got her out of Chicago, about 100 miles away, some little small rural area in Michigan. How's the family? And I trust me, because if my grandfather would have found out about it, it would have been a different ending. Trust me. And my grandmother, but trust me, my grandfather, he would have been. We all seen the movie The Equalizer with Denzel Washington. My grandfather was truly the equalizer. So, how do you help a family member in that situation?
Yeah. And that was probably one of your mother's biggest fears, was that your grandfather would get in trouble. And
It
so,
was.
once again, she's afraid to let them know anything. But family can continue to possibly send notes, letters on the, we have texting now, but even when they talk to them, maybe a brief conversation. I love you. I'll always be here for you. That's a quick message that oftentimes will let that victim know that, regardless of what he's saying, I can always go back to my family. And just let them know too, you've always got a place to come to. They feel it, but there's nothing like hearing it and knowing it, because that abuser is saying they don't care for you. Your family don't want you. You're sorry. They don't want to be around you. But you, as a family member, have to keep reiterating, we love you.
Wow, I'm having a flashback because everything that you just said is what my mother told me, that the abusers she had, because she had two that I knew of, and they would say that your family don't love you, they're not gonna come for you and help you. And God knows it. Not just my grandfather, myself. That's a whole nother story. She did. She kept a lot from my grandfather, and she kept a lot from me personally because she knew that I was going to intervene. Lisa, can you please give the public? I'm sure there's a woman right now, or it could even be a man, but there's a woman that's probably in a desperate situation right now, life-threatening. You have a contact number. I'm sure you got some information where people can reach out. You gave the domestic abuse hotline. You guys are here in the Carolinas. They do great work. That's why I got them on the show. Could you give them the contact information that you guys have? Because I know you guys really will intervene in a major way to rescue a woman and her family, her kids, out of a dangerous situation.
Yes, you can reach out to us at 843-602-7829. And that's with Palmetto Hope Network. And it's 24 hours. People often laugh, but someone's going to answer. Someone's going to answer, and they're going to respond. Butch has a Facebook presence that he'll give that information to, and people often reach out to him on Messenger as well. We're here. I'll let Butch share the website as well. But just know we can connect you with resources, and we realize that every case management plan has to be designed for the individual. So we're going to hear what your needs are. We're not going to try to force you in a direction that you're not ready to take. We're going to work with you. So Butch, you can.
And Butch, we only got a few minutes. In closing, give the contact information for Real Men Against Domestic Violence, and your closing message to any man out there that's looking at this right now. Or you might know a man. It could be your son. It could be your grandson. It could be your nephew. It could be somebody you know. What's the message that you have for young and not so young men, Butch?
Yeah, well, Geno, you hit the nail right on the head, man. I always say real men don't hit women. That's the message that I always give to men. A lot of people don't realize that domestic violence is the leading cause of death or injury to women under 45 years old. So domestic violence plays a very pivotal role in everything that we got going on in our lives today. It's the number one crime in the state of South Carolina. We're at Real Mad. We're on Facebook, Real Mad, Butch Kennedy on Facebook. You can find us there. Our website is palmettohopenetwork.org. And we are definitely the home of Real Mad. And our number one thing is to deal with domestic violence. And we want men to become accountable, to hold each other accountable. We as men are the solution to ending violence against women. So let's come together and do it.
And listen, guys, Lisa and Butch's organization, without going into details, there have been families, I know on one occasion, there was a woman that I knew of that was in a very desperate situation. And I reached out to Lisa and the Butch. And it doesn't matter, like I said, 24/7. If you call them, so if you're watching and you need help, and if you call them, they'll answer. especially in the Carolinas. Once again, if you are anywhere in America, the domestic abuse hotline is 800-799-7233. That's 800-799-7233. Lisa and Butch, I love you guys, and
Yeah.
I hate talking about it, but I'm honored. I'm honored that God is using me as a vessel to try to save somebody's life, as my mother said, to make sure that no one else's daughter, all right, no one else's mother went through what witnessed my mother go through. And so that is my main goal, to put an end to violence, violence periods, but specifically violence against women. So Lisa and Butch Kennedy, thank you guys, and we'll talk soon. And I know you guys are always doing a lot, so they'll be regulars on the Geno Jones Show, because I am truly an advocate and passionate about ending the scourge of violence. Anything else you guys wanted to add before we close out?
Lisa?
Just that we're here, and families stand behind these individuals. It makes a difference.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Geno. We love you back, bro.
Hey man, listen, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you.
Listen, they do great work, and there's some great people. I want to thank them for joining. This is like I said, this is a tough subject, but I'm built for it. I'm here for it. I have no problem at all, and I'm honored. Like I said, that I'm honored that God has given me this platform to do what I can to end violence against women in any form. Listen, thank you for letting me be a part of your life. As always, God bless each and every one of you, God. Most of all, thank you for letting me do the Geno Show. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Geno Jones YouTube channel. All right, we do this show Monday through Friday, 6:30 p.m., around 6:30 p.m. Always not exactly 6:30, maybe a minute or two earlier, maybe a few minutes later. You know, we're still in the age of COVID when it comes to technology. So technology gets crazy, as you saw a couple times during the show. But it's all about the message and using the platform to deliver the message. And we entertain and we make you laugh, and current events, and my social political commentary. But today my social commentary was about ending domestic violence. A shout out to my hairstylist, Markel Bailey, Kelby Cuttin, KELBECUTTIN on Instagram. My wardrobe consultant, Mr. Bruce Gage, also Flyball, the store. So check out Bruce Gage on Instagram, where you can. Flyball is it is a line, an officially licensed line of Negro League gear, clothing, and memorabilia. So flyballthestore.com, or just check out Bruce Gage on Instagram, Miglio di Umo. Miglio di Umo. It's a French. Umo is a French Italian name. It's an Italian name. But anyway, just Google, make it simple for yourself. Bruce Gage, Gage. Check out Bruce Gage on Instagram, and you can see his Instagram page and all the just the fashions, the clothing is just, as the kids say, the drip is spectacular. He'll have you looking good there. Mother, I love you, and I want to thank my mother. Mother, I want to thank you for allowing me to share such a painful part of your past and a painful part of our past, and allowing me to tell your story, to do what I can to end domestic violence, and to be so willing to allow me to share that story, because I can only imagine the pain. I have a pretty good idea, but you lived it, so I still can't fully imagine the pain that it caused you, and I'm sure it still does. So the fact that you're willing to, in spite of that, in spite of those triggers, having these conversations that I'm sure that trigger these memories, you've been so generous in terms of allowing me to share your story, to hopefully end domestic violence and violence against women. So thank you, Mother. I love you. You know that more than life itself. And I love you guys too. I love you for watching. I really do. So tomorrow, it'll be my week in review. Every Friday we kind of recap things that happened from the week. So make sure you tune in for that. I got a very special musical guest next Tuesday. All I can tell you is It's a woman that you know and love. It's an R&B singer that's got a new single, and man, if I give you this one clue, you'll probably know. So all I'm gonna say is just tune in, okay? Thank you, everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell everybody you know to like, share, and subscribe. All right, I got a goal. I want to get 100,000 new subscribers. My goal is to get 100,000 new subscribers in 6 months. All right, so every day I'm getting more and more subscribers. And binge watch all my past episodes. I've had some great guests. We've had a lot of fun. I got some very funny shows. I got some very strong commentary. So we have fun, but we get serious, and we are very informative, educational, compelling, and riveting personal conversation like we had today. But I had some great guests. Shout out to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They've been a guest. Larry Dotson, the former lead singer of the Barcades. You can go back and check out that episode. R&B icon Lenny Williams, the brother that made "Cause I Love You." You know the oh. You know what song I'm talking about. Yeah, remember when they did that on the Kings of Comedy? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Reggie Calloway from Midnight Star. Chris Jasper from the Isley Brothers. Also Dr. Damon Arnold. That's a very important episode. He is a public health and infectious disease expert with impeccable, as they say, the receipts. This brother's got some real serious receipts. The resume is impeccable. And he tells all of us, especially all of us black people, why we need to get the COVID-19 vaccine and not listen to all the rumors and the lies and the conspiracy theories. Like, oh, they're going to put a microchip. You already got a microchip. You know what your microchip is? It's your cell phone. Trust me. They can find you anywhere on the planet with that damn cell phone. Even if you power it down. And the only way they won't is if you take the battery out and throw it away. Didn't know that, did you? So, but I got some great episodes. If you missed them, go back and binge watch all the episodes. Listen, we kick off the weekend. Once again, I want to thank Butch and Lisa Kennedy with Real Men Against Domestic Violence. They do great work, all right? So we'll kick off the weekend tomorrow, right around 6:30 Eastern Time. God bless you, and I love you. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe and tune in to the next episode of The Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube.